I ran into a situation with my brother-in-law. We really got into it, and I really felt like what he did to me was like a betrayal. Like I got stabbed in the back. I was so angry at him. I didn't want to forgive him at all. And unfortunately, that anger I harbored it deep into my heart. It put me in the hospital.
Wow.
I thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
So I went in and they shot me up with a bunch of stuff. And then the cardiologist came around and said, hey, I'm looking at your heart. Your heart is awesome. He said, I can see you have an anger issue.
This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Hello and welcome to episode 59. Thank you, listener, for investing in your relationship. We are so glad that you're listening to us today.
Yeah, welcome back. So we want to reintroduce Roger Gibson is back with us here this week. And for those of you who may not have tuned in, we encourage you to go back and listen to the last episode. But Roger Gibson is a husband, father, author, pastor. Roger is the son-in-law of the late Gary Smalley, the world-renowned marriage and family expert. Roger has also had a huge influence on this ministry here at Celebrate.church for Pastor Chris, who is our marriage and family pastor, and just a huge influence, like I said, on this ministry, even on this podcast, you know, and everything that you've poured into Pastor Chris. So we want to just welcome back Roger to the show.
Welcome, Roger.
Awesome. I'm starting to think Celebrate is my new church here in South Dakota.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Anytime you're in South Dakota, this is your home church.
This is where I'm coming.
Yes.
For sure.
Love you guys. And people here in Sioux Falls are the most loving people.
Yeah.
I love being here.
We have great people here.
Absolutely.
And the weather is pretty okay right now, too.
Yeah.
Just nice fall weather. I don't know when this airs exactly. Can't guarantee we won't have snow on the 5th. We might. I don't know.
Might. Yeah.
Hopefully not.
It's a possibility.
Hopefully not. We still have to get in our fall photos.
There you go.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So today's show, we want to build on last week's show. We talked a lot about investing in marriage and what that looks like. But today we want to focus on two things: communication and forgiveness, and what that looks like in marriages.
Yeah, these are big topics, and we're going to start with communication if we can, Roger. Why is communication? We talk about this a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because it comes up again and again and again. It seems to be the root of many, many things and issues in marriage. Roger, why is communication so difficult?
I don't know. How's that? No,
Right.
it is hard. And what I love is this is worldwide. As couples, as we struggle with communication. And because there's really, unfortunately, I'm sure, Ryan, you married someone who has a different opinion than you have on certain things.
Yes.
And
Yes.
communication styles?
Very different communicators.
Yes. So you got opposites marrying each other. And I definitely married a person that has a different opinion than I have on things. And that's really why communication gets so hard, is because we have different ideas, different expectations, different values that we have. And so when we're communicating, we're really communicating from a standpoint of, this is what I believe on it. Then as your spouse going, that wasn't what I thought on it. Then we start going back and forth and get really into what we call conflict. Conflict, you're a normal couple if you have conflict, so that's a good news for a lot.
Yeah.
I just learned that 8% of couples have conflict every single day.
Okay.
So we don't have conflict every single day, but there's 8% of the population, they have it every single day.
I feel like I thought that would be higher.
I know, I did too. Because
Right? Like that's because it's such a big thing. Communication is always, you always hear people talk about it.
Maybe we're in the 8%.
I don't know. I don't know. But it doesn't feel like major, like boom conflict. I don't know. There may be like little minor things, but
Or you guys are just a super couple and go fly right over it, resolve it quickly and move on. And that's really when we get into communication, because first of all, communication is the heart and soul of marriage. You cannot have a relationship without communication. And communication is also represents the flow of information. Like your son had a soccer game. You guys were communicating. I was witnessing that. You guys had flow of information, making sure Thomas got to his game. But then you have communication that's more about, emotional connection. There's different types of communication. And a lot of times we want to stay at the surface level, and sometimes we want to go into deeper intimacy levels. And usually they're not at the same time on that. So how do we, as a couple, navigate through meeting each other's communication need? Really, there's one thing that we can do every single day to really give us a great gauge on communication. And we really just call that the daily delay. It's connecting.
The daily, what was that? The daily what?
Daily delay.
The daily delay. Okay.
The daily delay.
Okay, it's catchy. I like it already.
Yes, is I actually, if you were to look at my phone and you went on to, know how you can set alarms?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You'll see at 11 a.m., it says, contact my sweet wife.
You have one of those, Ryan, at 11:11.
I do.
11:11.
Yeah.
And then I have a whole bunch of different emojis there to be the reminder of what kind of connection I need to make
Okay.
on that. So what that does is, because as people, we get busy. We talked about that in the last episode, how busyness is really the fox to friendship.
That steals it? Like the fox is stealing it? Okay.
Yeah, it's really, we get so busy that we forget to connect with one another. And then when there's not a connection, we're not talking, there's no flow of communication going back and forth, that's when we start getting into disconnection, and then that's when that irritation comes up. It's that, ooh, they don't like me, or I must not be good enough because they don't want to spend any time with me. So when we do these little daily delays, all you need is 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes of communication. So reason why I set my alarm clock is to help me as a reminder, wait a minute, I got to connect with Carrie on that. And here's the good news for communication. It doesn't have to all be voice. It can be through texting. You know, we did that Fun Friday challenge.
Yep, 5-Minute Friday.
Right,
Yeah.
where you send one biblical truth, one nugget, what God is speaking to you. It could be a verse, could be a prayer, it could be whatever it could be. You send that to your spouse. Hey, I was just thinking about you, and this verse really spoke out to me. That could be a text. That's part of your communication. Because that communication represents more than anything, is they're thinking of me.
Right. Yeah.
When we're not feeling like we're a priority, that's when we start going on the defense. That's when we get critical. That's when we start thinking we must not have good communication. It's not about information. It's about connection. And when we're taking time out of our day, the 20 minutes doesn't all have to be at the same time. It could be at separate times throughout the day. But I can text Carrie and just say, hey, I cannot wait for our date night. It's going to be so much fun tonight. I send it. That's communication.
That is so, I feel like I just had kind of a revelation about Friday, Ryan. I feel like, well, yeah, I feel like I was working somewhere that I was inside. I don't know what was up at this building. It was like a cement, I don't know, shelter or something. I had zero Wi-Fi the whole day, so I couldn't get a hold of him. It was kind of a rough day. And then I got done and there were just a few issues. And all I wanted to do was talk to Ryan, my spouse, my love. And I called him and his boss came in and he didn't even say like, hey, hold on, love. He just started talking to his boss and then they just kept talking. So then I just hung up and I was so frustrated. Like, I was talking to you. And granted, Ryan's like, well, sorry, I'm at work. My boss came in. Like, but still, I wanted that connection. And that kind of caused a little bit of like friction where I was like, aren't I important? And you're like, well, my boss came in. Like, what was I supposed to do? She just started talking right away. And but I think that's exactly it. We had zero connection throughout the day.
Yep.
Right.
And then like life happened and they're just like, there was this friction because that connection hadn't been happening.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
You were. You were to go Friday. Yeah.
I was.
Yeah. But that like, I feel like you just explained what it was because you were like, Michelle, why are you being like short with me? But we had not had those moments of connection.
Right.
Even those simple little, usually we will have those text messages. Our anniversary is November 11th, which is why we do 11/11.
I love that.
Like those mean so much, even if it's just like, love you or a heart emoji or whatever.
Emojis count, which is great.
They do. Yeah.
On it is,
you
but
took
the
time
thing,
to send it.
Yes. So, and Carrie, I'd learn if more emojis I do, the more turned on she gets. So Love the emojis.
All the emojis.
It works.
Man.
It works. And now we're getting into gifts. So,
Okay.
but the thing is, it all connects with her because it says, hey, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah.
I value you and I want to have a relationship with you. And that builds that friendship because communication, for some reason, as couples, we think it's all about this big dialogue.
Yeah.
As opposed, it's just many points throughout the day is I'm thinking of you. Hey, here's a funny thing that happened at work. Or like for you, is Carrie will say, I just had the worst day. And this happened at Target, this happened over here, and hey, your daughter is, it's so frustrating. To her, that's phenomenal communication.
Sure. Because she feels included.
Yes.
Like she's there with you. You're letting her in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And what I've learned, like for a lot of what I do is confidential. I don't really share, so I can't really share a lot with her. But I've learned that just by telling her, man, it's been a rough day. I'm coming home and I'm tired on that. Now, because I'm communicating, I'm connecting with her and I'm sharing what's inside of my heart. I'm exhausted. Hey, she's way more open because now she feels a part of me. That is communication.
Yeah.
On it. It's the thing of where are we connecting? Now that was flow of information, like I was telling her, hey, I'm tired. Or she may say, hey, man, my neck really hurts. I can barely move it on that. Can you come home and, massage my neck? Just communication.
Yeah.
On it. It's very, very simple, but yet we make it so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have simply different expectations and different opinions and different values that if couples would just take 20 minutes a day, set the alarm.
Yeah.
And then when that alarm goes off, just start off by a simple text and then watch what happens.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah. I mean, I think two things. One, I'm sure every guy wants to know what emojis you're using.
Yes.
So we'll maybe get that from you later.
Can we put those in the show notes or something? They can just copy and paste.
Right.
I know.
Just so everybody knows. But two, I think something really...
We're really going to have to do that now. Roger, you're probably, I guess I don't know what they are.
Right.
But
I can go to Pastor Chris on that one.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Get creative with your emojis.
Yeah.
The other thing though that I think is so good is that you let your wife into your day.
Yes.
And I think so often, and I do this, and I'm not trying to stereotype men, but I think you might have an awful day and you don't ever let your wife in to your day, and then you come home and you explode because you had like the worst day. And I think conflict arises then at that point because you've not let her in. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know the type of day you have. So then when she asks you to go mow the yard or do the dishes, it just sets you off because you had this horrible day, but she doesn't know that.
Right.
And I think so much of that is so important to, that's part of why I set the alarms on my phone to realize, okay, I'm a husband, but I need to let Michelle into my day so that when I come home, like she knows some of what happened to me that day.
Yeah. And through that is one of the things we do is I always say over communicate that, because when you're over communicating, like I feel like I'm flooding with Carrie, I'm just now communicating on it. And that's when you feel like, okay, now you're talking to me. I feel like I'm way overdoing it. No,
right.
It's not. But you're exactly right. It is letting those things. Now, for me, is I would let those things happen on that. Not communicating is, I'm learning in this same deal, is all of us guys, as we grew up, probably put up, shut up, no blood, no tears, suck it up, buttercup, home. Is you weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
On that and show those emotions on that. So then when we come home, it's like, wait a minute, we're not communicating because we haven't connected. You don't understand me because you're not a mind reader. And
yeah,
we have that explosion. Then that's when the heart shut down.
Sure.
And when that heart shuts down, we got disconnection on that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way, but we've taken parenting classes that have said, like connect before you correct. But that kind of in a way, it's like, if you don't have that connection, you really can't speak in. Like there's no understanding. You have to have that connection first.
Yeah. And that's really what we want to do. And that's why when we talk about communication, you have to talk about forgiveness with it. Because there's times when we talk about communication when we say, hey, our communication is bad, what you're really saying is, hey, I'm not feeling connected on that. And when we're not feeling connected, that means the heart is usually shut down. Now, when I say heart is shut down, so this represents the heart. An open hand is able to receive love and give love because my heart is open to you. I feel safe. I feel connected.
Sure.
But then when the heart shuts down, this can't receive love or give love because my heart is shut on that. So as couples, how do we get that heart open again so we can repair the relationship on it? Because every couple does it. Actually, we did a survey research project when I was with Gary Smalley. And we sent out research just finding out so we took highly satisfied couples. I mean, they're really fulfilled in their marriage. They feel like they're the top 10%. So we wanted to find out what is the number one trait that makes them so much better than everyone else. What did they think made their marriage good? So when we got that research back, I mean, I was like, man, I really hope it's sex. Because, man, I am using this to my advantage on it. Or, I thought it would be communication.
Right.
But really, the number one trait that they said why we have an outstanding marriage, a super couple marriage, is their ability to forgive. Ability to seek forgiveness and forgive. I just remember looking at that going, that is not sexy.
Yeah.
That is not something I wanted to hear. But when you really look at it, it's really the gateway of a awesome marriage because we're going to constantly blow it. Now, I blow it a lot on it. So I've had to learn how to really do it well on that with the repair. But forgiveness, when we have unforgiveness in our heart, so there's a lot of hurts in marriage. Because we talk about communication, we talk about the fun of it. It's only 20 minutes, but when you have day after day after day after day, some big things happen in a relationship that shuts down the heart. And then you have the little things that just over and over and over, they become big things.
Sure.
On that. So how do we get that relationship on track? Now, I was very interested in that.
All right. So Roger, you talked about this idea of your heart, once your heart's closed. And we were chatting about this and you said that forgiveness really has 4 parts.
Yes.
Maybe share that with our listeners here so that we can learn once that heart is closed, how do we reopen it?
Yeah. That's a great question. And this is really a skill that every couple needs to have because we're going to do that. That's just normal. We can't expect to be perfect all the time. But really, when we talk about forgiveness is when we're in unforgiveness, when we're bitter, we're angry, we're holding that against them. Really what we're doing to our relationship is we're like putting a noose around our heart and we're going to be not able to have intimacy. So we want to get back on track so we can have intimacy. And a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but I really don't ever feel like apologizing.
Right. It's not super enjoyable, right?
Yeah, you get that awkward moment in the kitchen where you're like, why don't you start it first? You're the one, this is your issue. But you know what? We talk about this unforgiveness. We talk about anger is how do we do that? Because we talk about super successful couples. They said forgiveness is number one trait for them having a highly satisfying marriage. So here's the first one. It's a command. It doesn't say, hey, when you feel like it, you can forgive. But right away, forgive. I ran into a situation with my brother-in-law. We really got into it, and I really felt like what he did to me was like a betrayal. Like I got stabbed in the back. I was so angry at him. I didn't want to forgive him at all on that. And I really held that. And unfortunately, that anger I harbored it deep into my heart and put me in the hospital.
Wow.
I thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
And I learned if you really want to get in the back of the ER quicker, just tell them you're having a heart attack. Boom, you're in.
Very true.
Yes. So I went in and they shot me up with a bunch of stuff. And then the doctor, the cardiologist came around and said, hey, I'm looking at your heart. Your heart is awesome. He said, I can see you have an anger issue.
Wow.
I was like,
Wow.
whoa.
Wow.
And so that was embarrassing to me because of the work I do. And he didn't know me from Adam.
Wow.
Yeah.
He said, I highly recommend you talk to a counselor.
Did you tell him I am a counselor?
I held that back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I wanted to come up. I'm an oil rig worker or something, something really manly on it. So that was so humiliating to me. So I went into my favorite counselor to talk to, work with. Amazing. He was actually Gary's counselor too. And he was kind of familiar with the story, and I said it, and he said, you need to forgive him. I go, I will. He goes, no, you need to forgive him now.
Yeah.
I go, no, I don't. He goes, if you want to keep going like this, if you want to feel miserable, don't forgive. But if you want to feel better, you want to have a higher quality of life, you forgive, because Christ says it's not an option. And a lot of times I tell couples, hey, I know what he did was awful. I know what she did was very hurtful, but we need to forgive now. Because when we say, I forgive, it puts us on the pathway to start of healing.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even utter out his name. So I got in my truck and silently I said, Lord, I forgive Greg. And that was the beginning of my restoration. So I had to hurry up and forgive because I did not like feeling like this. And a lot of times in marriage, when we don't like that relationship, that awkwardness is we got to forgive. It's a command. Not that you have to tell them, I forgive you, but we got to be quick to forgive on that. And
it's just as much for us as it is for them,
exactly.
if not more for us, because it unchains our heart from holding on to that and that callousness that it forms.
Yeah, forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's for me on it. And a lot of times it's reverse. We think it's for them. I can't let them win on it. But by me harboring, I was thinking of all the revenge I could do. Instead, I was just really getting to our next step is when we forgive, it cleanses out our heart. Don't let the sun set down on your anger or it gives a foothold.
Yeah, we live by that. Never go to bed angry. Don't let the sun go down. Yep.
And because that is true, we don't want to let that sun set. Now, verbatim, literal. If we took that literally, like, don't let the sun go down. Because Carrie and I would do that. And then we, past like 11 o'clock at night, we just get meaner and meaner and meaner. It doesn't work that way. And then, well, if that was literal, then what about the people that live in Alaska?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You get time, but we don't want to let that. It's okay to call a timeout, take a pause and say, hey, let's talk about this in the morning over coffee.
Sure.
Because Carrie and I are fantastic in the morning.
So it's okay to take a break, but don't let it go like too far, like a day or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't need to go more than 24 hours.
Sure.
But your best time of the day. So if you're feeling angry, you're feeling resentful, you can't do it, but it's not your best time of day. Just say, hey, I love you way too much to continue in this way.
Sure.
Don't say, hey, buddy, you need a timeout. That doesn't work so well on it. But
those are great words. I love you too much to continue in this way.
Yeah.
Let's regroup when we're at our best.
Yeah,
that's great advice.
And so if I call the pause or the timeout, then I'll say, hey, I call when we're going to meet too. So that way the other person doesn't think I'm escaping. I'm withdrawing from it. So, hey, I will make the coffee and then let's resolve this and talk about it.
That's great.
Because we don't want to let that anger, that bitterness, that resentment, and that's what happened to me. And that's why I'm so passionate about people is forgive. Because you don't want to allow that foothold. And when you allow that to come into your heart, it becomes making you a person that you never were. So when people say, I'm not the same person I used to be, then we need to take a look inside of our own heart.
Sure.
On that. So we want to do it quickly. It's a command. It cleanses our heart. Then when we start doing that, it starts restoring our relationship.
That's number 2.
That's number 3.
Okay. 3. Oh, 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So command is number 1.
2 is do it quickly.
Yes, is we want to make sure that we do it quickly. Then the third one is it restores our relationship. So the second one is actually it cleanses our heart.
Okay.
So command cleanses our heart, restores our relationship.
Okay.
Because now I'm ready. I've forgiven you. I don't have that ugly junk in my heart anymore. It's out through prayer. God is, what is inside of me that is really bugging me? Why am I so angry? It's amazing how the Holy Spirit will tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we start seeking forgiveness. So Greg and I, quick story, resentful, gone through this whole thing. We end up on a cruise together.
Oh man,
A
you're
family
trapped.
cruise on it. And so I thought, beautiful outside. It's late. We got the kids down and I'm going to go sit in the jacuzzi. And Carrie's like, hey, I'm going to just lay down with the kids. I'm exhausted. And so I thought, I'm going to go in jacuzzi. I go to jacuzzi. I get in. I settle in. I'm all comfortable. Guess who comes? Greg. And he comes in jacuzzi. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this is super awkward. But the Holy Spirit kept saying, hey, I want you to tell him you forgive him.
Yeah.
And you need to seek forgiveness. I said, hey, Greg, I am so sorry for the way I treated you. He goes, wait, no. Do you forgive me for what I did? So it was total restoration
Wow.
on it. It was amazing. 2 guys hugging in a jacuzzi, and I was hoping no one else would come around and see us on it. But it was amazing how it restored our relationship.
Would you say that your relationship is stronger now, having gone through that and just that reconciliation and you guys there hugging in the jacuzzi? Is it stronger now than it was before?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
It not only restored our relationship, but it really put the past behind. So now you don't have that guiltiness on it. And what was so funny is shortly after that, I was speaking in St. Louis at a really large church. And I was sharing the story of forgiveness. And I accidentally mentioned his name. Oh. And that's
for our listeners, I did, after he said his name, I stopped and I was like, let's redo that and don't say his name. And you had said, hey, it's okay. We've shared this. So you guys, just so you know, we did have that same thing too.
We're all good now.
So you let it slip in St. Louis.
I let it in a large church. There was no taking it back. And Greg and I were together that next weekend. I said, hey, Greg, I have to tell you, I said your name when I did this message at the church. And he said, hey, that is okay. In fact, have I asked you to forgive me? I went, yes. He said, but no, did I ever tell you why I wasn't man enough to stand up for you? And I went, wait a minute. No, tell me this story. So he said, I want you to forgive me because I wasn't man enough, courageous enough to stand up and for you in front of this other group. And will you forgive me? I just remember going, God, you are so good because it gave more the why on it. And you talk about stronger relationship because it repaired our relationship. He was able to say that to me on it. So it's just amazing what forgiveness does because the last point is it moves us forward. It moves us forward because I love what in Philippians 4, what Paul said, hey, I'm not going to allow the past to affect me, but I'm going to keep moving forward towards surprise. And so many couples, we allow our past to dictate what the future of our relationship is going to be. On it. But if we can seek forgiveness, and the reason why those couples figure that out is because they're going to mess up. But when we're quick to seek forgiveness, poof, those hearts open up, and now we're free to reconnect again. And it's amazing what it does to your love story because, Michelle, you're very right. And a lot of those ugly moments when they're not good, that's where God is working the healing. That's where God is working in a deeper, intimate part of our hearts, not just for our relationship, but it showed a major growth area I had as a follower of Jesus. Man, humility, I needed. Pride was killing me on that. And it made me a better man, a better father, made me a better husband. And so I didn't like it then, but now I look back on it and go, wow, God, thank you for that.
Yeah. That's such a powerful, I think that last point, Roger, about moving forward. And I think so many people in their relationships, they they get stuck and they hold on.
Mm-hmm.
They close their heart and they stop. And I think there's so much to that making forward progress, and just truly believing that God is doing a work and better things are to come. And I love that. I love that picture.
I think there are a lot of people out there that are being chained to their past and are almost prisoners of that. I came across someone this week that I had this meeting, and it wasn't about a relationship. It just was stuff in general, unforgiveness. And I left and I just thought, oh my goodness, it just was so, they're like 10 years back in this muck and murk. And I'm like, they are being chained to their past in this moment. Yeah. Roger, this has been so good. And I would say this for our listeners, and Roger, chime in here too. But I mean, there could be unforgiveness in a relationship. I mean, we might be talking that the spouse didn't do the dishes and there's anger harbored towards that. But for some of you listeners, it could be some kind of a betrayal or something much deeper and years in the making, right? Yep. So I think our advice, Roger, you encouraged our listeners, just as we were talking here prior to recording, is reach out to our church. Reach out to Celebrate.church/marriage. Reach out to Pastor Chris. Reach out to a professional marriage counselor, a faith-based Christian marriage counselor, somebody that can walk through this process with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Satan definitely wants you to stay there. But God has a future for you in a relationship that is more than you can ever dream or imagine. Mm-hmm. And I always ask a certain individual, and I have this too, is how much longer do you want to go this way?
I got goosebumps when you asked that question. That's a really, really great question. Yeah. How much longer do you want to go this way? And what are you going to do to change it? So forgiveness.
And you have that power to change it today. So I would just encourage all the listeners and people at your church and listening to the podcast is, hey, let's make this the last day on it. And you're going to experience relationships at a higher quality than you ever thought possible.
Roger, thank you so much for being on our show for a second week in a row. It was so great to have you here today.
Thanks.
To our listener, thank you so much for joining us today. Roger, thank you so much for being back for a second week.
My pleasure.
This is really great. This is really great to have you here live in the studio. And again, to our listener, thank you for joining us. Thank you for wanting reconciliation, wanting to grow in your marriage. We are so glad that you're here. You can find marriage resources, like I said, at Celebrate.church/marriage. And you can even text in questions for us. We have a Google number, which is 605-951-0110. We're also on Instagram at the Celebrate MarriageCast. So thank you so much for listening this week. And we'll talk to you on 5 Minute Friday.